When someone you love walks away from you, ends their relationship with you, the sharpest edges of your past trauma will reveal themselves to you. And the emotions of being left are one part of the trauma residue. Sometimes it's you who left, and later you regretted it. So whoever left, either way, the pain can eventually help you to see very clearly, sometimes for the first time, how the trauma that's still inside you affects your ability to handle really loving another person. So if you blow it with somebody, what can you do? Here's a letter from someone I'll call Maggie, and here's her story. Dear Anna, I'm curious what your advice would be to this situation. We dated on and off for 3 years and then got engaged. Shortly thereafter, our relationship fell apart. I recognize now, 6 months after the breakup, how many mistakes I made and how I let my unhealth hurt him and our relationship. It was this very short note from Maggie, and I wrote back to her and said, can you tell me more? I need a little context. And it was interesting that it was so cursory. So I got some more information, and here's what Maggie told me. He isn't in a new relationship. I had asked that. That's really relevant about what you can do. She says, we met about 5 years ago, and we're just friends and neighbors. He developed feelings much faster than me, and even asked me on a date. But I was unsure and told him I saw him just as a friend. But I always felt drawn to him. He was patient and allowed us to slowly build a friendship through walks and events with friends. And several months later, he confessed he had fallen in love with me. To be honest, I was starting to feel that way too, despite being surprised. He was so different from the type I had imagined, and I was hesitant still. Soon we started dating on and off because I would always get cold feet. Still, he patiently loved. It took 3 years, and walking through a hardship of me being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which was ulcerative colitis, and being on bed rest for 6 months, it shook us both and brought out the worst in me. Still, he patiently loved. Finally, we broke through my hesitations and forgave the past. For 6 months, we were the strongest we'd ever been, so we got engaged, excited to finally be on track. Unfortunately, my friends were nervous about our relationship and started to express lots of concern because of the history of the on and off pattern. It was a nightmare, she said, realizing that the women who would be my bridesmaids weren't on board with us getting married. It caused painful conflict and confusion, and as a couple, we never recovered, though we tried through many counseling sessions and conversations. He eventually broke our engagement, calling it the hardest thing he'd ever had to do. It wasn't because he didn't love me. He just couldn't see a path forward because we disagreed so strongly. I know we both made mistakes, but he was open, clear, invested, and steady through it all. He loved me in my ugliest moments. I'm ashamed that I caused a man like that to feel such a push and pull from me, never knowing where he stood with me. I'm also embarrassed that I let my mental health decline toward the end and drifted into codependency and demanded that he fill my empty heart. Lastly, I would like him to know that I now see the purpose of our breakup, and I'm grateful he had the courage to make that boundary. It's been the wake-up call I needed to get the help I needed: counseling, church community, prayer, and healing. There is no chance anymore of reconciling, she says, and I asked. But I would love a chance to apologize to him, not as a way of getting back together, but as a means of bringing more peace, clarity, and closure to our lives. We loved each other deeply. Do you think this is a wise idea, or are apologies after breakups more hurtful than helpful? What if he never knows how deeply sorry I am? I feel I owe him a sincere apology for specific behaviors. All right. What a beautiful letter that is. And I feel for you. And I also feel that there's a lot of mystery here and like, what does it all mean? But I'm going to tell you what I suggest about this. In so many cases, I suggest to people, don't make an apology to an ex. And the main reason being is that it can rekindle feelings, and if they are in a new relationship, it's going to bring complication and heartache into their life. Even if they're not in a new relationship, it can bring complication and heartache into both of your lives. But when making an apology, a paramount consideration is not to further hurt other people. So that's why normally I discourage the apology to an ex is to stop having contact with them. It's very countercultural these days not to be friends with an ex, but with all this pain involved, that is the apology. All right. In this case, you were engaged. He really stood by you and did well. You were very unclear about where you came from, and I understand and respect your desire to apologize to him. And because you happen to know he's not with somebody, I think that I feel okay about it if you do, about you approaching him about this. Rejection, losing out, it must have been horrendous for him to be engaged to you and then to have so many people doubt the relationship and for you to reject him so many times. And so I could see that there could possibly be, there's no guarantee, but there could possibly a restoration of his faith in himself and his judgment and helping him be clearer so that he can go on with his life. But I would encourage you, to orient everything you do in this apology towards what is for his best interest, all right? Now, I know you're going to look out for your own best interest, and we'll talk about that too. So here's a way that you can do it. You could do it with a letter. Normally, I tell people you should get face-to-face if you possibly can. But I do think in this case, because getting face-to-face could bring up romantic feelings that would only be messy and complicated, and you yourself said you're very clear, this is cannot be worked out, it's not going to be resumed again. And I'll just say, way off in the realm of possibility, if something changed for him and he felt willing to give it another try, he would let you know. I don't want you to hold out hope for that. It is safe to keep the door closed on that in the way that you handle an apology to him with this. One thing I want to make sure you hear is that I'm so proud of you for getting into a relationship with such a good person who loves you. That is such an accomplishment. And given your background, it's just really well done. You chose somebody who loves you. And I'm sorry for both of you that it didn't get to work out. And by the way, anybody watching, if you feel like you also were affected by past trauma and it's affected your ability to really be in a relationship, you can take a quiz. It's called the Relationship Quiz. I have a number of quizzes. This one's about relationships, and it's a series of symptoms that could tell you that, yes, childhood trauma is affecting your ability to show up in relationships. So that's there. So you're showing one of the great signs is that you went into something and you couldn't really bring your whole self into it. So I'm going to tip my hand here. You know what I think? I think that he was a great guy and you were not that into him. And I think you tried to make it work because he was so great. And that is commendable. There's, that it's not evil. That is worth trying. It's worth making a go of it with somebody who loves you and sticks by you and helps you through stuff. And you weren't ready either to love somebody who loved you or to love anybody at all. And maybe you weren't ready to decline to get into a relationship with somebody who you actually weren't interested in. I think all of us have done that sometimes. We go in because we need the love so much. And there they are, they're being kind and good, and we want to go in. And we didn't yet have the strength and personal awareness to not get into a relationship with somebody with such lovely love on offer to us. So totally forgivable. And I feel so bad for him because obviously this would be very hurtful to him. So he had the strength to go to couples therapy with you and he got clear to break it off. And I'm proud of him for that too. That was a job well done for somebody who's ambivalent. I wouldn't recommend to anybody to be with an ambivalent partner. But the pain that you and he are going through now as you sort of process this loss, this dream that was in front of you of a happy marriage and the way it fell apart, it's going to give each of you, pain is your teacher, pain is your shovel to excavate what is the trauma in there that has you seeking out love where you can't have it yet. And I just see all this stuff with you. I think it's interesting that your ulcerative colitis, autoimmune stuff, it is trauma related. Your trauma may have been expressing itself. And I think that that's something that often happens when we take a big step up, whether it's through our careers or through loving somebody, getting into a relationship, is sometimes it stresses us and the trauma can't quite really handle what's coming up, and we just haven't healed that trauma enough, and it starts to express itself as, I don't mean to say it's in your head or anything, but the kind of stress that a traumatized person goes through with intimacy can be very triggering for somaticized stuff. And somaticized means it affects your nervous system, that the traumatic wound causes changes to your nervous system. And I've had it. I've had problems healing wounds. I've had problems with asthma, back pain. I had multiple surgeries where I just kept having complications. It wasn't getting better. Those are examples of somaticized unwellness. So when I healed my trauma, all of those things were able to heal. Healing your trauma can't actually keep you alive forever, stop you from ever getting sick. But sometimes if your unhealed trauma is really got a grip on you, it can make you sick. And as you heal your trauma, it will undo. And I think you might be able to find that with some of the problems you were having. But also that fear you had about getting into the relationship. I don't think you're crazy. And while trauma may have played a role in that fear and you let a really good guy get away, it's what can you do? If you didn't feel really good about getting together with him, you did the right thing by objecting. And I think you did good here. You did good. So here's how to make an apology that's really clean. In this case, I would suggest a letter so it doesn't rekindle feelings. The way you write it, I want you to be careful not to rekindle things. Maybe share it with a friend to help make sure that it's clean, that you're really just owning your side of things, not trying to manipulate into romantic feelings coming up again. And I don't hear that at all in your letter, but just for anybody listening, I think that's really important when you're apologizing, that it's not secretly a way to get back together with somebody, which I have tried before. I've tried before, and it doesn't tend to, an apology when it's coming from the right place can do beautiful healing things and sort of set people free from something that was tangled and painful. I've had that experience, and I've had the experience where I was basically trying to jockey my way back into somebody's life, pretending that I was sorry for something. That did not work. That did not give a good feeling. It just made people distrust me, and rightly so. Just putting that out there. So in a letter, you can go ahead and keep it brief, keep it very, very straightforward. Let him know that you've been doing some thinking and learning about things, and you can see more clearly what you did, and that you just want to let him know that you understand. A really good apology does not in any way tell stories to make excuses for yourself. You don't need to do that, all right? If he wants to ask you questions about it, you can leave the door open for that. And you can decide if you want to leave the door open through a letter or through other means like a coffee or something. But let's just say he can ask questions if he wants to. So all you want to do is just generally give it all to him. Just give him the recognition what you did. That's what's satisfying to us when we get hurt is do they even understand? Do you understand what you did? That's what's so crazy making when somebody breaks our hearts is there's so often these things where they didn't get it, they didn't understand where they were coming from, they evaluated us wrong, and we want that set straight. So all you're doing in an apology is giving to him the opportunity to see that you do get it. You realize that he's a good, valuable person, that what you did wasn't fair, and if you can be specific about what you did, don't ever introduce new harms to him, like if you, cheated on him or something and he doesn't know that, do not bring that in. That is not an apology, all right? That's dropping a bomb on somebody. And it hurts. It can hurt much later. I found out my high school boyfriend cheated on me. I found out when I was 40, and you know what? I cried. I don't even know him anymore. But it just really messed up my whole memory of that, which was already kind of messed up. So you're not going to drop anything on him that he doesn't know, but just dealing with what he already knows. You're going to use your empathy to understand what hurt him and be able to describe, I did this, I did this, I did this. If that had been done to me, I would feel this. Just demonstrate that you get it. If somebody had gone back and forth with me when I was engaged, that would have made me feel just anxious and invalidated, or whatever words that you understand he felt, and just identify with it. Let yourself feel how that must have felt for him. That is empathy. Use that. Express it. Express that you get it. Then say, I'm so sorry for doing that to you. You deserved better. Then let him know what you intend to do. In this case, what you intend to do is wish him well in his life and to give him peace. When we apologize to other people, there sometimes is a future possible, so you can offer that to people. But in this case, you're closing the door on it, just saying, I wish you well. I want you to have every happiness, and and then ask for forgiveness. Say, can you please, I hope you can forgive me. And he may or may not forgive you. He may or may not tell you whether he forgive you. You may never hear from him again, but you will have the dignity of having taken responsibility for the harm you caused and expressing that to somebody and done your best to generously give them back what was taken from them by that harm. And then you're going to have to let go and trust that that apology and all the context spiritually and all the friends who love you both, all of it is going to take care of itself. You do your part and then you let go. Don't pester, don't try to find out, just let it go. Let yourself feel the goodness of the fact that you did that. Let it in. Let it in. You're becoming a strong and good and responsible person who cares about others. So that's really good. If you love this topic about weird ways that we secretly avoid people thinking that we're committing to them, I have a video on what I call covert avoidance. A lot of people love this video of mine. I'm going to line it up right here for anybody who wants to watch it, and I'll see you very soon.